Welcome in to the Mac and Main show with Jack Main, Eric Kerr, Jacob Resnick drops by every now and again. And today's special guest, one of my favorite baseball personalities of all time. And I'm not talking about Big Papi, Pedroia. No, I'm talking about the man who catches all the baseballs, Zack Hample. He has joined us right here on this special edition of the Mac and Main show. Zack is an author, YouTuber, a world record holder, and so many world records, including the number of baseballs caught at a game, and also a rubber band ball, the biggest rubber band ball in the world. He's caught over 11,650 baseballs, 580,000 subscribers on YouTube, 81 home runs in games, 53 of those on the fly. Zack, super great to have you. Thanks for being here.
I am so happy to be with you guys. I will, however, point out that my rubber band ball is not the biggest in the world. So don't give me more credit than I deserve. It's probably the biggest in Manhattan, in New York City. I'll make that claim, but there are bigger ones. But thank you for that nice intro. And again, it's great to talk with you guys.
How's your off season been? How has it been having a slow kind of, plugging along off season?
People often don't believe me when I say that my favorite time of the year is the off season. That wasn't the case when I was much younger. Life got in the way of baseball, and I've gotten to this point where baseball has a way of getting in the way of life. So unfortunately, it's hard to live life to the fullest right now with all this COVID stuff, but I need this time to recharge, to come back strong in the spring. And yeah, just normally I see as many people as possible, and I'm extremely social. And of course, I've had to cut that down recently, but still seeing some friends and family, eating better, sleeping more, exercising more, geeking out over some other things that I don't have time for during the season. So I love it.
What's kind of your view of the lockout, just kind of as it developed? It was kind of like looming over baseball fans' heads for a couple of years as kind of a thing in the future that was going to happen, and now that kind of the baseball world's at a standstill, from your perspective as someone who thrives off just baseball being at its best, and having games to go to, and obviously we're not at the point where games are potentially being canceled, but we're kind of at a point where there's just kind of a lot of animosity in the baseball world. What's kind of your perspective on that?
My take is that everybody's a dumbass. You have millionaires fighting with billionaires, and I understand both sides. I really do. And yet I'm still going to say that everybody's dumb. Everybody loses when there's a lockout, and especially if games are missed. So, it's easy for me to sit here on the sidelines and say, you need to give up something, and you need to give up something. And, but people, humans in general, are self-destructive. And this is one of those examples. And we've all let greed take over our lives in so many ways. So it's really a shame. And yeah, we're not at the point where games will automatically be canceled, but we're getting close. And even if games are not canceled, people are still going to remember this. And it's just a matter of, will this be a footnote, or is this going to be the entire book, basically? Because this will be talked about forever. So it's really a shame. We lost so many games in 2020 with the pandemic, and it's like, that's still an issue, obviously, but we've proven for the most part that we can deal with it. I mean, there's always new variants and then infection numbers, but let's not have dumb personalities and attitudes and greed be the cause of games being canceled. If the universe and if science is truly against us, that's one thing, but I think we all need to step up and be better.
You're someone who's taken what you do as a baseball fan, from kind of going to games and collecting as many baseballs as possible, to like taking that and trying to use that to bring fans closer to the game. Over the last few years, you built your brand up on YouTube and social media to be very successful, very popular. Fan access is something that people have given MLB a lot of flack for, especially in recent years, when you compare it to leagues like the NBA and the NFL in terms of just fans having the much as much connection to their favorite teams and favorite players. If you had some say in the direction that MLB takes, and what they put into the CBA does have some impact on this, but what would you suggest the league and the players do to kind of improve fan access and I guess fan closeness to their favorite teams and players?
Again, I think it's tough with a pandemic because social distancing is important, but it's not going to be like this forever, one can assume. And I think that all this netting going up around stadiums is a real pain. And I understand that it is necessary. You don't want people getting hurt, but I think the netting should be retractable pre-game, especially when batting practice is not happening. And there are some stadiums where they do have retractable netting in certain places. And you could just hoist it up like you would curtains or shades in your house. So I think that's important for fans and players to be physically close to each other without a barrier in between. I think every stadium should open 2.5 hours at minimum before game time. Last year, the Yankees, this historic franchise with the most money and the most fans, opened just 90 minutes before game time, which is so late that Yankee fans could not even see the Yankees warming up, which I think is terrible. I mean, I'd like to use some colorful language to describe how I really feel, but I'll keep it clean. It's a family show. Maybe we can assume.
Please do as you wish. Say as you wish.
Oh, well, I mean, I have my own squeaky clean image to uphold, but I think it really sucked. I'll say that. And I understand that it's expensive for teams to have to hire employees for an extra hour to get there when fans are there, but I think there just needs to be something league-wide that the stadiums will open early, fans can come and see their players. I think every team should have it in the contract for their players that like a minimum of 5 guys have to go and sign autographs for a minimum of half an hour every day before the game. Don't check tickets at the top of the stairs until the game starts. Let people wander and explore. I mean, there's a lot of things that MLB does, and even just individual ushers do, because they're directed from the top, that is very alienating to fans. And New York City in particular is extremely strict. The Yankees actually became less strict over the past season, which was strange. The Mets run one of the tightest ships in baseball. It seems like at Citi Field, their only mission is to keep fans as far away from the field as possible, which I think is terrible. Checking tickets 600 feet from home plate in right center field if you want to walk down into those seats to watch the pitchers warm up half an hour before game time. It's totally absurd, and it has no place in an entertainment venue, I think. So MLB should improve stuff like that. And I just don't see it happening with the current administration. But I remember after the strike in 94 and 95, Major League Baseball became a lot friendlier. The Mets in particular, they used to open 90 minutes early, and then suddenly they started opening 2.5 hours early after that. So I guess that may have actually been a product of their terrible losing season in 1993, now that I think about it. But again, it's like when you're having a tough time convincing people to show up at games, you have to be extra nice. And I wish it didn't take something bad happening to baseball to do that. I wish that were just the default way of being, treating fans nicely, opening earlier, increasing access. So those are some things, I think, at least from the perspective of attending games. And also get rid of local blackouts if people want to watch on MLB TV. My God, I mean, that's just, everything is just done in the name of grabbing every last dollar, and every owner is a billionaire, and sure, some of them will claim that they're losing money, but revenue sharing, it's just like the whole thing is a mess. And yeah, I think we need to think about the fans more as a general thing.
As college students, I can guarantee you, getting rid of blackouts is a blessing. We don't have to go and we don't have to illegally Reddit stream all of our games and the media.
Because we go to school in Connecticut, so we're 2 hours from New York and 2 hours from Boston. So we're not really in either market, but
they're both
we have a lot of Red Sox fans. We have a lot of Red Sox fans, a lot of Mets fans, a lot of Yankees fans, even some Phillies fans. from South Jersey, and we can't watch any of those on our computers unless we go through the back websites.
That's awful. Yeah, I mean, it's like people seem to be willing in general to pay for streaming or for digital media to a certain point. If you make it inconvenient, even when you pay for it, then people are going to get it for free. So, you know, I'm a big music guy, and I've had issues where I've bought music digitally and then I change devices and it won't play on my new device. So it's like, well, why should I pay for the music then? So that's something that I've struggled with. But, you know, of course, I've written books, and it's nice when people actually go and buy the books, and the thought that there are people out there illegally downloading my book. Hey, there's a copy. All right. Watching Baseball Smarter.
Yeah. My dad gave that to me when I was like 11 years old. And
Nice.
in the front, it says, in the front, it says that you had caught like 3,000 baseballs. And I was like,
oh, that's poverty.
And here we are 10 years later, and you have caught like 11,000 baseballs.
Yeah, I kind of went nuts since then. But yeah, the point is, reward people for spending money on your product. Don't punish them. How about that, MLB? You listening? Yeah.
And I know Jack's been passionate about that stuff with the MLB commissioner over there. And we appreciate your passion as well. And also keeping the language PG-13 for our viewers. I mean, we are college students, so we can go a little bit over the top sometimes, but we don't have to use the dump button in the radio studio if we curse a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do want to segue to a different kind of idea here, a bit more about your brand. One of the things that really stuck out to me when I kind of scrolled through your YouTube channel is you've been to multiple places, multiple bar parks, even outside the country as far as Japan. And while you were in Japan, you had a lot of like fans that were still like interested in you. They're like, oh my God, like Zack Hample's here. Can we get your autograph? That kind of thing. It was really cool to me to see how you're able to kind of touch that fan base outside of American borders with, you know, baseball being such a American based sport, but being able to touch something like Japan baseball fans is pretty cool. So I guess my question for you is, how are you able to kind of touch the international fan base, you know, with the content that you're able to create?
Baseball, as you guys know, is a global game. And if I could speak any languages other than English, I think I'd be even bigger globally, but I'm just one of those dumb Americans that speaks my native language, and that's it. Of course, I can ask players for baseballs in many different languages, but that's just one line. Japanese, by the way, choto boru nagate kudasai. But, you know, I look at my YouTube analytics, and it's fun to geek out over the numbers, just like baseball fans do in general. And I like to look at where in the world people are watching me. And basically, if you can think of a country, there are people watching me there. It only shows me the top 50, or I'm sure there's a way to see every country, but I see the top 50. And, you know, I mean, you name it, India and Russia and Israel and Sweden. And I mean, a lot of random places that I think some people might not even have heard of. And that's fun. So Japan is obviously a big one. You know, America is the biggest, and then Canada, and there's some people over in the UK, but you know, baseball is huge in Japan. I think they might actually like baseball over there more than we do here, having been there myself. And that was for Major League Baseball games. Imagine how crazy Japanese people get when they're seeing their own teams and players play. Of course, Ichiro was there both times that I was there, but they're passionate. So in a way, I almost feel like I'm not getting enough views as I should or could over in Japan, or let's say in the Dominican Republic, where they are insane for baseball, but I don't speak Spanish. So I think it's tough for a lot of people there to watch me and understand. But yeah, it's a pretty cool feeling to be an ocean away from home and still have people knowing about me. But, you know, when I think about the level of notoriety that I have at baseball stadiums, it's weird because there are people who are much more famous than I am, who probably get recognized much less often just out and about in their everyday lives. But with me, it's just like I have such a niche area of focus. And then when I go to a game, it's like all of those people are concentrated in one spot. So it's pretty crazy when I go to baseball games, and it's pretty chill when I'm outside of a stadium. So kind of the best of both worlds, I guess. I can pretend to be all high and mighty and important at a baseball stadium, sign my autographs, you know, like take selfies, and then peace out. And it's just sort of like I'm anonymous out there. So it is a very strange contrast. And I realize the unique position that I'm in.
Now, you aren't a journalist in the literal sense. And, the fact that the three of us are trying to, get into local media and then, work our way up from there. But you started, your own brand. You started your own ability to reach people and touch people first by writing books and then by moving over into this multimedia platform. So have you fully, or do you continue to plan to evolve planning to evolve your brand as a YouTuber, or are you still planning on being an author in the future?
I don't think I'm going to write another book unless I marry a writer. I think that's pretty much how that works. But, I started off as a print journalist. I was an English major in college. I had a journalism concentration, sports studies minor. I wrote for the school paper regularly. I was a contributor, and I've written 3 books. I wrote my first book when I was in college, and I started writing the second book a year or two once I graduated. And again, a few years after I graduated, I got a job writing for minorleaguebaseball.com. And I worked there for 3 years, a little less and less each year as other baseball things started to take over. But that was my main thing. I blogged for pretty much every game I attended for 9 years. I think I probably wrote more than 1 million words on my blog. And I've written more than 15,000 pages in my personal journals going back to when I was 17. So writing was the main thing in my life. And I just kind of stumbled into all the video stuff. I was interviewed a lot because I have a media friendly hobby. And so I was used to being on camera, and, really because of the A-Rod ball snagging his 3,000th hit, I got so much attention from that when I started doing videos a little more regularly after, really still almost as an afterthought, not to try to make money, they got so many views all of a sudden that I realized that there was potential if I devoted myself to it, that I could probably turn that into my full-time thing. So as far as where I go from here, I'd love to be a regular contributor on TV. I would love it if the MLB Network were like, you have such a big reach and fans love you. We're going to give you half an hour and we're going to give you credentials and send a film crew and give you access to the players and, interview Mike Trout while you're playing catch with him. Like, I know I could make it so fun and draw even more people in, but how do I get the establishment to take notice of that? So in the meantime, I'm content doing my own thing, and, we'll see where the YouTube thing takes me.
It's funny you mentioned just real quick, you mentioned the blog, because when I first met you, that was your thing. And I just remember reading the blog entries and waiting for the next one and the occasional YouTube video. And now that's the full-time thing. And it's been like very interesting to just watch kind of how you've taken it from, like I said, the occasional video to now almost every game that you go to, and you're producing this whole thing, and just to see the reaction that it gets is pretty crazy. Because obviously, like you said, it wasn't the intention at first to make that a full-time thing, but what have you learned about content creation, about being a YouTuber? What makes a successful content creation machine? What have you learned as you've kind of gone along about kind of what makes a successful YouTuber?
Good question. I think that having something interesting to say or doing something unique really stands out, but you also have to do it well. And a mistake that I see a lot of kids make, because, everybody wants to be a YouTuber now. I've heard that YouTuber is the #1 dream job of American children, right? More than astronaut, rock star, movie star, baseball player. Like, people want to be YouTubers because I think people feel like anybody can do it. You don't have to be a world-class athlete or, have an IQ off the charts. Like, anybody can get lucky, go viral, and then take it from there and make your full-time living doing videos and having a following. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? But it actually is a ton of work. And a mistake that a lot of kids make is really bad videography, just shaky camera work and blurry shots. And then people also don't know how to edit. There is such sloppy editing and sloppy storytelling. And, YouTube, I think the way the algorithm works, and everything is kind of a mystery, but it seems like they reward longer videos. But that doesn't mean that you should just record a bunch of crap for 20 minutes or 40 minutes. A video, I find, can be as long as you want if every second of that video, every fraction of a second, is on point and meaningful, and it's filmed and edited well. So I don't aim for a certain length in my stadium videos. If nothing really happens, I'll put a 7 or 8 minute video out there. But if it's super interesting, I'll go 25 minutes. And I find that the views are still there and the revenue is actually up because there are more ads in the video. So learn how to film and learn how to edit are really the things. And I think for people who are maybe up and coming as aspiring journalists, it seems like the whole world, well, obviously is moving toward a digital kind of thing. So, learn how to edit photos and especially learn how to film and edit video. Even if you don't want to be a YouTuber, if you're a reporter or a correspondent and you're out in the field on an assignment, it's going to be very valuable if you can film something, even if it's quick, and edit it, put it together. I'm not saying you have to learn how to do Hollywood style special effects, but I didn't know how to edit at all. Just even 5 years ago, I didn't know which buttons to press in iMovie. And, I still don't claim at this point to be an award-winning editor. I can't do crazy special effects. And there's a lot of just storytelling elements that I never learned because I didn't study this in school. So I know that I could be better, but in terms of keeping things moving tightly and blending the audio and making the story flow like a narrative arc, I know that I'm pretty good at that. And that was just self-taught by watching YouTube tutorials. So I would encourage everybody to learn the basics of filming and editing, because that's going to come in handy as a journalist, I would assume. So that's kind of how I approach all this YouTube stuff. And you have to be dedicated to it. I've had a lot of people ask me for advice on how to write a book. And I always say, here's my advice: don't. And they're like, what? And I'm like, listen, if you write a book, it's going to take a solid year of your life where you have no other life. And that's if you do it full time. If you don't do it full time and you're out there living your life and having fun, it's going to take you 2 years or 3 or 4 years. It's going to take a lot of time. And the same is true for being a YouTuber. You really have to keep putting content out to make the algorithm happy and to grow. And I've actually gotten to the point where I take a lot of time off in the off season. And I know that my numbers are down as a result. I don't really gain subscribers this time of year. My revenue is way down, like 1/10 of what it is during the season. But personally, I'd rather have less money and less stress in my life to be able to relax and enjoy myself. So, I go so hard during the season that I need this time to just take it down several notches. But in the early days, yeah, it was 12 months a year. So my advice is just prepare to devote yourself to it and learn all the skills.
Yeah, my dream job when I was a kid was also to be a YouTuber, and sadly, it didn't really work out as well. But I'm glad that I'm doing journalism instead. But I guess it's kind of follow up off that. You said it took you a while to be able to grow to what you are now. How fast or how slow did it take to reach those numbers that you would have liked as a YouTuber?
I got a lot of media attention from my very first book, which came out when I was a junior in college. I wrote it after my freshman year when I was 19. I mean, it's a bad book looking back at it, because I wasn't even an English major back then, so it's not written that well. But that was my first taste of media and sort of what it's like to be in that world of having a lot of eyeballs on you and people recognizing me, and then actually sticking with me over the years when I did other things, like writing my blog, for example. There were people that had my first book that found my blog, and it started to grow little by little over the years. But even after my first book and writing a blog and being on TV quite a lot, I might still only be recognized a handful of times at each game that I went to. And I feel like no matter what I did or how big I felt I was getting, it always plateaued somewhat and it never got huge. But really, when things started to change, it wasn't my second book, it wasn't my third book, it wasn't getting on, late night talk shows or all that stuff. It was all fun and meaningful, but catching A-Rod's 3,000th hit, or should I say picking up that baseball because it landed in the seats and I grabbed it. That the amount of attention and exposure that I got just from getting that one ball dwarfed everything else that I'd done in my whole life prior to that. So that was massive. And I had noticed it over the previous 15 years with all the media exposure I got, and whenever I caught a big home run and it made the news and whatever, that there'd always be this little burst of activity, and then things would fade out. And I realized with this A-Rod ball, well, first of all, this was bigger than anything else, so it was less likely to fade as quickly. But I realized, like, I need to ride this wave. I need to keep this momentum going. And I got lucky with YouTube, and that was the thing. So it all happened pretty fast with the A-Rod ball. That was 2015. And then in 2016, I started putting a lot of YouTube videos out there, and the channel just exploded that season. I don't remember. I mean, I could go look back at the numbers. I don't remember. I know that I had 2,000 YouTube subscribers at the start of the 2016 season. And I don't know how many I had at the end of that season, but, you know, tens of thousands. So it got big fast. Maybe I even hit 100,000 that year. It seems like I've gained about 100,000 every season or so. So yeah, just looking for the next big thing. I might have to catch, you know, Mike Trout's 800th home run, or I don't know what, but yeah, always looking for ways to just keep building and building. And there's a documentary about me that's coming out in a few months, so that's going to be pretty big. And again, we'll see where things go from there.
We'll only keep you on for a couple more minutes here. But the A-Rod hit, you know, there was a lot of controversy that surrounded that, because you held on to that ball for a couple of weeks before you ultimately gave it back. What was the motivation to A, keep the ball, and then B, eventually give it back to A-Rod?
Yeah, so I got that ball on June 19th, 2015, and I ended up handing it to him on July 3rd, exactly 2 weeks later, at a press conference at Yankee Stadium, which was one of the coolest experiences of my life. So my motivation for holding on to the ball initially was OMFG. I can't believe I got this thing, and this could be life-changing money. And even if I don't sell it, I don't know, I want to enjoy having it, but I need to think about what to do. So I took it home with me that night. It was a Friday night when I got the ball. And, you know, by the end of that night, I had already met with Randy Levine, the Yankees president, and he had already offered to donate money from the Yankees to this charity pitch in for baseball that I had been working with for a number of years. And so even that first night, after I had decided I'm going to take this ball home and think about it, I was like, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. And that is give it to A-Rod and help out the charity. So, you know, within 3 to 4 hours of getting the ball, I kind of knew that that's what was going to happen, but I still needed to take it home, think about it, enjoy it, work out a deal with the Yankees. I brought the director of the charity in. There were meetings. And within a few days, we had a deal in place, but the Yankees were heading off on an 8-day road trip. And a lot of people have bashed me, you know, especially closer to when I first got that ball, for, you know, why did you like hang on to it for 2 weeks? You should have like given it to A-Rod like as soon as you knew. And I'm like, did you want me to break into Yankee Stadium and place the ball on home plate and be like, here it is, A-Rod, whenever you get back? So, you know, the process needed some time to play out when you're dealing with a Major League Baseball team with a ton of executives that's worth billions of dollars, and they're donating a 6-figure sum to a charity, and there's tax implications. There's just like a lot of stuff that had to go into it. I wasn't holding the ball hostage. I wasn't, you know, it wasn't to demand a ransom. It wasn't to increase my level of fame, as people were saying. If I wanted to increase that, I'd still have the ball today. I just needed to think about it. And then I worked out a deal with the charity, and, you know, I still miss having that baseball, but I don't regret the decision. I think the best possible thing happened with that ball. The charity received $150,000, and their whole mission is helping kids play ball who might not have the money or the resources to do so. So it's a great cause and right on brand with everything that I do, just trying to help the game and help kids. So yeah, looking back all these years later, as messy and murky as things were at the time, I do feel great about how it all played out.
I recently interviewed Mark Laurie, who's A-Rod's business partner in his partnership with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx. And I asked him, A-Rod's career, we all know the details of it. Would you put him in the Hall of Fame? Now, Mark said yes. I want to hear your a little bit more unbiased, baseball-centered opinion on that.
I say no. I say anybody who's been proven to have used steroids doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. You could argue that, well, Bonds and Clemens, they were going to be in the Hall of Fame anyway, and then they, just wanted to be even better, and the same could be said of A-Rod. I say screw them all. They don't belong there. And sure, they have the numbers and they have the skills. You could argue that Pete Rose should never be in the Hall of Fame because of gambling. And I don't know. It's like, well, Ty Cobb is in the Hall of Fame and he was, one of the most despicable human beings of all time. So it's like gambling is worse than racism. Like, I don't know. It's murky gray areas, but I would keep all those guys out of the Hall of Fame. And maybe that would dissuade future players from cheating if it's going to get them banned. Of course, everybody cheats. People use pine tar and people steal signs and what's acceptable and what's not. Like, it's kind of cute and clever up to a certain point if you get away with something, but I don't know. It's tough, but that's my take.
It's almost
keep them out of the Hall of Fame.
It's almost a flawed sport where you don't have the all-time home run leader and the all-time hits leader not in the Hall of Fame. Like, imagine the NBA where Steph Curry doesn't make the Hall of Fame, or the NFL where Tom Brady doesn't make the Hall of Fame because of just murky history with the game. It's absolutely fascinating. So on your Hall of Fame ballot this year, who do you have going in?
I would need to know who the options are first. I don't have this stuff memorized. I pay no attention to baseball this time of year. So have people been talking about it? I don't know. I unfollowed MLB on Instagram. No offense to them, but it's just like, I'm trying not to think about baseball. I'm following.
You're holding out for that MLB Network contract.
What's that?
You're holding out for that MLB Network contract?
They're not going to hire me, I guess, if they're seeing this and they're like, this guy's a bozo. He doesn't even know who's going to the Hall. Is Bonds and Clemens? Are they? Wait.
I was going to share my screen real quick, but it says the host disabled participant screen sharing. So.
I'll figure it out here. Yeah, Bonds and Clemens. It's their last year on the ballot. A-Rod's first year. Obviously, you got like Scott. Everyone's voting for Scott Rowland, who I think had a mediocre career. But David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Kurt Schilling. Obviously, this is just the former Red Sox that are on the list.
I see this list now. Wow. I think Helton belongs in the Hall of Fame, and people could argue that his numbers were inflated because he played, a mile high above sea level, but I don't care. I think he belongs. I think Tim Hudson belongs. You can't make guys win 300 games anymore. Like that metric has gone way down as far as what should get you into the Hall. Like, you're going to keep CC Sabathia out of the Hall of Fame because he doesn't have 300 wins. Get out of here. So I'd put Tim Hudson in there. I think Andrew Jones belongs, just because he fell short of 500 home runs doesn't mean that he should be kept out. I think Jeff Kent also, he's like the best hitting second baseman ever. Who else? Oh yeah. I loved Manny so much, but again, the steroid thing, even David Ortiz, I think he was implicated in some performance enhancing drugs, which is weird because he's so beloved, but I think people forget that he got caught up in that. So I'd probably keep him out.
I think the other issue with guys like Ortiz and even Bonds, I think it's a little before my time, so I'm not exactly sure, but those guys were like mentioned in reports, but never actually failed a test. And also it was like before they were suspending guys for it. So it's like the murky situation gets even murkier.
Yeah. That's tough. I guess Scott Rowland, I'd vote for. Mark Teixeira, he fell short of some of the big milestones, but damn, he was so good.
He was like one of the best first basemen in the league for a while.
Yeah. I think you put Tex in. I think Omar Vizquel as well. I know that he's, very controversial now because he did some stuff off the field. But, if we're not judging moral character, I think he belongs. His offensive numbers are paltry, but he was a wizard defensively at one of the toughest positions. And I think Billy Wagner goes in also. I mean, he was so dominant.
His numbers are pretty comparable to Trevor Hoffman if you look at it. Hoffman, I think, played a little longer, but
so I didn't even realize that there are so many talented players on the ballot coming up. Wow.
Yeah, that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
The crazy thing for us is now the ballot is just full of guys that we saw, growing up, and we saw their primes. When we, a few years ago, it was mostly guys who either we caught the very end of their careers, or didn't see it all. But now it's all guys that we maybe saw in person even, which is pretty cool to see. And I think it's kind of a nice reminder in the midst of the the negative stuff surrounding baseball, that there are just so many talented players that are have played and are playing now. One thing I wanted to ask before we head out of here is, you see a lot of baseball in person, probably at least way more than the average fan. But during the season, you're at games, and I'm sure you watch some games on TV as well. I guess what's your overall thoughts on like the health of the league, as far as it's like, the players that exist, and the talents, and the I guess potentially marketable faces and talents that aren't marketed as well as they could be, but just the raw talent that you see on a nightly basis in this league?
I think the talent is at an all-time high. And I think we're in perhaps somewhat of a golden age of marketability, because anybody entering the league now, and even for a number of years, grew up on social media. And so they get it, and they know what it is to appeal to the younger demographic. And I think that flashiness is finally being rewarded and celebrated. And you have a lot of Latino players, and like Vlad and Tatis Jr. And I mean, they're both juniors, but there's a lot of young guys like that who are phenomenally talented and fun to watch. And I think they're really going to set the tone for other guys coming up. So if you're a baseball fan, you can get coverage and you can get close to the players 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I mean, I've been reading old journals of mine, going back to 1995, when I was in Boise, Idaho for the summer, interning for a team. And I was obsessed with Frank Thomas at the time. And I wrote in my journal one day that I wanted to know how many walks Frank Thomas had, like in August. I had to call the White Sox and ask them how many walks he had. Like, that was the level of coverage of baseball. And if you wanted to know who was leading the league in any stat, you had to wait for the Sunday paper when they printed all the league leaders. So compare that to how it is now, when you can get any little piece of information anytime. Like little kids can be analyzing this stuff and doing their YouTube videos and opening up baseball cards and playing MLB The Show with their favorite players or old time players. Like, everybody is able to be so much more of a fan now. And I think the league needs to keep up with that and grant access to the fans like we were talking about earlier, and not make it so hard. But, there are guys like Mike Trout who, play on the West Coast. So his games are taking place when a lot of the country is asleep. His team, unfortunately, stinks, and he doesn't have a flashy personality. I'm not going to, bash him for it. Derek Jeter wasn't flashy either. He was almost intentionally boring because he didn't want to cause controversy, but at least he was on the Yankees and they were winning World Series. So how do you market a guy like Mike Trout who almost doesn't want it? It's tough. But then you have guys like Shohei who are global phenomenons. So there's a lot of talented players and big time personalities, and it is fun to see. And I think, when when this labor dispute ends and when the pandemic ends, I think we're going to see attendance coming way, way back. I really do. But right now, things are pretty difficult. And I just hope that MLB is ready for it and seizes the moment.
How much money would you have paid in 1995 to see Frank Thomas's exit velocity?
I would have paid $1 per game to have that info available.
And now
just add it to my ticket, add it to my non-existent MLB TV subscription. Yeah.
Now it's just there. All right. So last thing before we let you go, you have so many amazing baseballs in your collection, and the list just keeps on growing. You know, the three favorite that everyone loves to mention are Mike Trout's first career home run, the A-Rod hit, or the A-Rod 3000th hit, and then the last home run ever hit at Shea Stadium. My favorite was this past fall when you caught Rafi Devers and Wander Franco's home runs in game 4 of the ALDS. The three of us were on the radio, and Jacob over here goes, "You're never going to believe who just caught Devers' 3-run home run. Some dude in a yellow shirt. Nah, that's Zack Hample. Like, we all knew that." And then later that night, we were on the radio still, and you caught Wander's home run. What is your favorite? I know you probably get asked this all the time, but you got to pick one. Gun to your head. What are you doing?
All right. Well, first, I don't mean to pick on you, Jack, but just to set the record straight, because I want accurate information, the home run that I got at Shea was the last Mets home run ever at Shea. It wasn't the very last home run, because the stupid Marlins, I think Wes Helms and Dan Ugla hit home runs after the one that I got in the 6th inning. It's like, could we just have not had any home runs for 3 innings? Was that too much to ask? But then the Marlins ruined that. But at least the Mets didn't hit any. So
with the 2008 Mets bullpen, yes, that was way too much to ask. Yeah.
I mean, Jacob, you know more about the Mets than anybody. So I don't even know how many people I could name in the bullpen from that 2008 team. But he can name every single player.
He can name every single player from 2006 on. One day on the roster doesn't matter. He names them all. It's incredible.
I believe it. So that Mets home run actually is my favorite ball that I've ever caught. I was certainly the most excited getting that baseball more than any other ball. Even the A-Rod ball, when I was really more stunned than straight up excited. And, I grew up as a Mets fan. I don't have a favorite team now, which is why I'm always rocking this baseball cap. But I'd been to hundreds of games at Shea and pretty much always sat in foul territory. Anybody who remembers the layout at Shea, well, then you know that there weren't too many options for catching home runs unless you could get into the picnic area, the bleachers in left center, but it was really hard to get out there because it was group sales only. And for many, many games during the lean years, that section was closed entirely. So nobody could get out there. So that home run that I got on the very last day ever at Shea Stadium was my first and only home run that I ever got at Shea. And it was a historic ball and I was freaking out. And so, yeah, that's number 1 for me. I did catch a Barry Bonds homer. I got a Derek Jeter homer. I got the final out ball from a Mariano Rivera save, which is really special. So these are all up on that list. The Father's Day ball that I got in, I guess, Cincinnati in 2017 with the blue stitches and the light blue stamping. That's one of my favorite balls, even though I didn't get it in a particularly exciting way. I think it was just like a 3rd out ball that got tossed up. So, my 10,000th ball, very exciting. But yeah, number 1 all time is that final Mets home run at Shea. How many balls have you guys caught?
I have one that I got Christian Vasquez toss up of a Joe Mauer strikeout, and I labeled it, and it's in a cube and everything right over there with my collection. I've also got a couple at spring training from a couple years back, but I know Jacob's probably got.
Yeah, I went through my phase, and I have a nice bag full of probably. I think it was the game that you got your 1,000th in a consecutive game. I also got my 100th at that game. So I think I crossed the triple digits line. There was a few years there where I was doing pretty well, but definitely past that phase of my life now.
I don't
Nice.
have as many baseballs as these guys, but I will say I have at least one ball from when the Pawtucket Paw Sox were still in Pawtucket, not in Worcester. So that's a big accomplishment for me. So I'll take that.
All right, you guys are all on the board.
Yeah, and if we're counting minor league, I mean, I was a bat boy for a minor league team, so I got the whole collection. But
Wow, you're cool. You're cool.
hey, easy.
Hey, oh.
Alrighty, Zack Hample. Everyone go check him out on Twitter, Zack_Hample. He hates it when you spell his name with an H, so it's got to be with a K. Zack.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, Zack_Hample.
What do you think of I think it was Zach Britton who like changed the spelling of his name, like that's like breaking the space-time continuum or something like that.
I know he changed it from Zach to Zach, right?
Zach.
I think so.
Not
he
because of
saw
you?
he came over
Yeah.
to the good side.
He
think
finally
it's probably
got it
something
right.
like
I think that if you search Zach baseball on Google and you spell it ZACK, I think I'm the first one that comes up. I know at least I was, but then, sometimes my friends are searching me, but the algorithm is such that it's like, if I've emailed this person, then their name is going to be like, the computer knows who they're looking for. So I'd be interested if some random person who's never heard of me searches for that.
So someone with a completely clean Google sheet with an IP address that's just started up. We need to see what happens if we type
who
in
just
Zach.
heard about me for the first time. I don't know, but maybe this interview now is ruining it somehow. But
No, are you kidding me?
Uh-oh.
no, I spell it right and everybody else spells it wrong. But no, anybody whose name begins with a Z, I feel a little something extra in my heart for them. So Zach, ZAC with no K or H, it's all good. We can all be friends. We all got it covered.
There we go. So anyway, everyone go subscribe to him on YouTube. He doesn't have enough. He's got 580 some odd subscribers. Go out there. Follow Jacob on Twitter as well, Jacob_Resnick. He doesn't have enough followers on there. And if you guys ever miss an episode of the Mac and Main Show, you can find them on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to go follow us on Twitter at Mac and Main to keep up with everything about the show. Jack Main, Jacob Resnick, Eric Kerr, and special guest Zack Hample. So long. We will see you guys next time.